When it comes to making money in ecom, especially with Google Ads, PMAX is one of the highest leverages that you can pull to make more money for your store. When we have our clients that might be spending, let's say, an overall budget of 100K per month, about 50% of that budget could be on PMAX alone, depending on the strategy we're running. So there's a lot of money to be made, especially if you have a really strong store with a lot of really great products. In this video, we're going to go over one of our SOPs that talks about scaling Performance Max, the different variables that are within Performance Max, and what we really pay attention to get it higher and higher and make the stores more money. So when it comes to this, really who this is made for, in most cases, Performance Max is going to play into ecom. There is Performance Max for local businesses. We won't talk about that in this video, but Performance Max alone is a omnipresent campaign type. What it does is it allows you to show on things like search, display, video, other different placements within Google, especially shopping, for example, too, without having to have independent campaigns for each. So it's very dynamic, it's very algorithm driven. This is what also replaced Google Shopping. You can still technically run Google Shopping. It's nowhere near as good as it used to be. Performance Max, in our experience, has always outperformed when we've tested against each other. So we almost always run Performance Max. There are different ways of building Performance Max as a strategy, whether you're doing what we call category campaigns on the Performance Max side, whether you're doing like a catch-all campaign, or you split, might be doing a no product feed campaign on the PMAX side. But in most cases for stores, the campaign type strategy for PMAX that we have the most success for is going to be a catch-all campaign that has everything in the same campaign, and then segmentation at the asset group level, making sure to categorize the signals, the content, and the product feed by the actual assets. That way there's segmentation there, and it's not so much about splitting the campaign types. So when it comes to how PMAX works, like I said, it's very, very algorithm heavy. You're going to give PMAX all of the assets that make sense, that are high quality. You're going to max it out. That's one of the things we'll talk about, is maxing out assets. And then PMAX is going to decide where it's going to show those assets, whether it's on shopping, search. It's always going to, at least the premise of it, is spend the money where it's going to make money for you. So if it finds that during the week, the money is going to be best spent on search and shopping, it's going to do that. And that's, once again, the premise doesn't always operate that way, but that's how it should. So it's very algorithm driven. In most cases, you're going to have the most influence from the shopping and search side. It will show on video, which is going to be YouTube, display, which will be the display partnership network, or at least remarketing. It'll also, technically worth noting, show top of funnel and bottom of the funnel. One of the things that PMAX is notorious for doing is pulling in a good amount of branded. What we found, there's certain ways you can try to exclude branded, but PMAX doesn't always do that as it should. That's common with Google, right? It'll say it'll do things in certain ways and it won't actually do things. So we always have to acknowledge how it's supposed to work and then play around with how we know it works. And with PMAX, it will capture branded traffic, and you will get low branded funnel type traffic through, but we consider it kind of a necessary evil, because it's also feeding the campaign the ideal type of customers they're going to be buying. So you're giving Google really good data feedback on the front end. It will burn some budget on the branded, but we consider it actually allowing it to make more money, because it gives it that data, and then it'll be able to scale stronger into cold. And that's what we've tested. We've tested a whole bunch of different variations, and that's just worked the best. So moving into here, the reason it works is because with Google, and especially with Facebook, like Facebook, as you've known in the past, if you've tried it, very strong on the algorithm side. You can do almost nowadays a very broad type campaign with really great creatives. You have great video, and it's going to scale out. Google wasn't always like that. Google's more control. You're fixating on what you know works and not giving Google as much allowance on the actual algorithm side. If you had in the past, it's going to usually waste your money. That's why it's very structured. But this was their answer to that. This was their competition to Facebook doing so well. They created the PMAX, and they've done a great job with it so far. There's been some kinks to the process, but it has done very well, leveraging the data and the algorithm on Google's side while giving it more control and then using your assets properly. The process of scaling PMAX is going to kind of depend on a couple things. The biggest thing is going to be maximizing ad creative. So with this campaign type, not only will you have search ads, which means you're going to be writing out text for the ads, headlines, descriptions, long headlines. You're also going to have images you're going to use. With images, very important nowadays. You're not going to have a banner style image where it's call to action and visuals and then also headlines. It's going to be just images of the product that you have. And that way, when it does the creativity side of the campaign type, it'll be able to put together a headline and a call to action with it. That's why it doesn't want you to have like all this writing in your picture is because it does it for you. And if it does it for you on top of your own writing, it'll look all funky, and that's why your ads get disapproved. So very important, if you're going to put pictures, make sure it's very clean cut pictures of the actual product without other variables in it. And then you're going to have video as well. If you don't have really great videos, there's so many tools nowadays that you can use to create one, whether you're doing, some videos with Canva or, one of these other softwares. Don't throw something in there that's just garbage, because it will show it. You want to make sure to, create something that's at least worth seeing, even if it's a product or the actual promotion centric. So highly recommend putting some love into the videos if you're gonna use PMAX. And then some other small things which you'll see, like verifying your business, using your business name, logo, that kind of thing. But the point of this is, the better the creatives you have in here, the more power it's going to give Google to scale out, because it's all based off of how people interact with your creatives. And if you give it garbage creatives, you're going to get garbage results. So you got to make sure, if you're going to build out this campaign type, you use as many creatives as you can that it allows, and you do it at the highest level of action to make sure that's very good, because that's going to determine what your results are like. Next is going to be targeting the ad signals. So ad signals are basically for the asset groups, and it's going to be the different signals that you give Google to tell who it should show the ads to traffic-wise. And you're basically telling it who's likely to convert. Instead of giving it just bare signals, you're giving it a head start. It's going to be a mix of a couple things. You're going to want to use your own data. Most of the time we're using people who have converted in the past, add to carts, things that are higher level actions. You're going to want to use search categories. So you're going to give it categories of longer tail keywords that people might be searching to actually want to buy your product. You can also do things that are like in-market affinity. If it's a broad audience, it makes sense to throw in there. You want to do generally a spread of all of that. That way it gives variation, but don't go too crazy in one. Like, you don't want to go like all broad, or it's going to have a really poor idea of who to show the ads to. You want to do a couple in each. Next is going to be merchant feed. So merchant feed is important because that is totally dependent on how it's going to show your ads on the shopping side, which, once again, shopping for e-com is one of the most important things, especially because it has its own placement. It's going to visualize your product. A lot of people click on shopping. And if you have a poor feed, it's going to have poor ads for your shopping side, or it's not even going to show them and get placements, because the placement of the ad will depend on how your feed's set up, what titles you're using for the product, what descriptions you're using, how good the picture is. You want to make sure you optimize your feed. That way it'll show properly on the merchant center to the actual shopping placements. And we always recommend the Apps in Process. Great app for tracking and feed management. Nowadays, Google just launched Merchant Center 2.0, which allows you to actually change the feed within Merchant Center. You weren't able to do that back in the day, so it makes it a little easier in that way. But highly recommend going through it and making sure everything is, T's are crossed and I's are dotted. When it comes to scaling campaigns on the PMAX side, they're a little bit different than on the search side, because when it comes to search, you can increase with a lot more predictability. You don't have to worry about the campaign going haywire. With PMAX, it's very algorithm based. So if you give it too heavy of increases, it'll cause the campaign to go completely haywire, and you'll see poor results, sometimes irreparable results. Sometimes you give a campaign too much money, to go crazy, and then you can't even revive where it was. A lot of the times though, if you do see some kind of dip based off an increase, you can just take a step back and it'll rebalance. So when it comes to these campaigns, we'll usually do increases between 10 to 50%, sometimes more, depending on how strong the ROI is. The higher the ROI is, the more you can increase the budget. Just know it's an equal lever. So the more budget goes up, the more ROI is going to go down. That's why we generally do it in steps. In most cases, we're going to do budget increase every couple of days. You usually don't want to do it every day unless it's something like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, when there's a lot of action going on. Because once again, if you give it too much money too quickly, it's going to spend your money regardless. It wants to spend the money, so it's going to start reaching for traffic. And when it reaches for traffic and gets broader traffic, you're going to see lower ROI, you're going to waste money, it's not going to convert. So just make sure when you run a campaign like this, you want to make sure to do those increases in steps. Wait a couple of days to see how the campaign reacts. If it reacts poorly, take a step back. Then you have to work on the assets around the campaign. If it goes well and ROI maintains, or it's still high, then you can do the next one. So if you'd like this SOP in PDF form, feel free to shoot us a DM on Instagram. It's in the description of our video. Otherwise, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. I'll answer them myself. Looking forward to the next video with you guys.